dive deep into the shadows of history, where lies a tale of fear, hysteria, and injustice. Welcome to the late 17th century in the nascent colonies of America, in a small village known as Salem, Massachusetts. A place and time that bore witness to a chilling chapter of history that still echoes through the ages. This is the story of the Salem Witch Trials, a period of mass paranoia and persecution that saw the lives of 20 innocent souls snuffed out by the flames of fear and superstition. In the spring of the year 1692, the serenity of this Puritan village was shattered. The first whispers of witchcraft began to circulate, originating from a most unlikely source. Two young girls, the daughter and niece of the village's minister, started exhibiting strange and unsettling behaviors. Fits of screaming, contortions and trances that could not be explained by the medical knowledge of the time. In their desperation, the villagers turned to the supernatural for answers, and the first accusations of witchcraft were born. These initial accusations acted as the spark to ignite a flame of paranoia and fear that would engulf the entire village. Friends turned on friends, families on families, as more and more were accused of consorting with the devil. No one was safe from suspicion, not even the most pious or respected among them. In the face of such terror and confusion, the village authorities took drastic action. Special courts were established, and the hunt for witches began in earnest. A dark cloud descended upon Salem, casting long shadows of fear and mistrust across its streets. The stage was set for one of history's most infamous witch hunts. And so we delve into the heart of this dark past, unearthing the chilling truths that lay buried beneath centuries of speculation and myth. We explore the human capacity for fear, for hysteria, for injustice. We explore the Salem Witch Trials. Innocent games of fortune-telling ignited a spark that would engulf the town in fear. In the quiet village of Salem, Massachusetts, in the winter of 1692, a group of young girls began to exhibit strange, unexplainable behavior. They convulsed, shouted blasphemies, and fell into trances. When medical explanations failed, the frightened villagers turned to a more sinister explanation: witchcraft. These young girls, led by Elizabeth Parris and Abigail Williams, started to point fingers. They accused three women of bewitching them: Sarah Good, Sarah Osborne, and an enslaved woman named Tituba. These women were outcasts, their circumstances or behaviors marking them as different, making them easy targets for the community's suspicion and fear. But the accusations didn't stop there. Like a wildfire, they quickly spread throughout the village and surrounding areas. Neighbor turned against neighbor. Friends and even families were torn apart as accusations were thrown and fear ran rampant. It seemed no one was safe from the spectral fingers of suspicion. The trials that followed were a bizarre spectacle. The court accepted what was known as spectral evidence, which was testimony about dreams and visions. The accusers, mostly young girls, would fall into fits during the trials, claiming they could see the specter of the accused afflicting them. This spectral evidence, impossible to prove or disprove, was a significant factor leading to the conviction of many innocent people. The court, the supposed bastion of justice, was consumed by hysteria. Reason was discarded, and fear took the helm. The accused were presumed guilty until proven innocent, a reversal of the fundamental principle of justice. In this frenzied atmosphere, the accusations multiplied. The trials continued, and the gallows claimed more and more victims. Justice was blinded by fear, leading to a wave of convictions. What started as innocent games spiraled into a dark chapter of history, a testament to the destructive power of fear and suspicion. The weight of the accusations bore heavy consequences, forever staining the town's history. In the grim aftermath of the Salem Witch Trials, the repercussions were as severe as they were far-reaching. 19 people were hanged on Gallows Hill, their lives brutally ended, labeled as witches. One man, Giles Corey, met an even more horrific fate. He was pressed to death under heavy stones for refusing to plead, a cruel and unusual punishment that echoed the severity of the times. But the casualties were not limited to the 20 who lost their lives. The trials tore through the fabric of Salem, leaving deep societal and familial rifts in their wake. Accusations flew freely, turning neighbor against neighbor, child against parent. Trust was a luxury few could afford, as the fear of being the next accused witch loomed over every household. The age-old bonds of community were shattered, replaced by a chilling atmosphere of suspicion and dread. It was a time when innocence was traded for survival, and love took a backseat to fear. The trials didn't just fracture families, they tarnished the town's reputation far beyond its borders. Salem became synonymous with hysteria and injustice, a grim reminder of the destructive power of fear and mass paranoia. The town's name became a byword for witch hunting, a symbol of a society gone mad with superstition and unfounded accusations. The impact was profound, casting a long and dark shadow over Salem. The town was forever marked by the trials, its history irrevocably marred by the senseless loss of life and the abandonment of reason. It served as a stark warning of the dangers of unchecked fear and the devastating consequences of unfounded accusations. To this day, the Salem Witch Trials stand as a testament to the darkest corners of human nature, where fear can override reason and innocence can be so easily sacrificed. It's a chilling reminder of a time when the line between life and death could be drawn by a single word: witch. Innocence was lost, as the town was consumed by a frenzy of fear and paranoia. In the wake of the trials, a town was left to reckon with its actions. An eerie silence had descended upon Salem, a stark contrast to the frenzied hysteria that had gripped it just months before. The trials had ceased as abruptly as they had begun, the fervor dissipating into the autumn air. The end of the trials was not marked by a grand event, but rather a gradual realization. The court of Oyer and Terminer, which had been established specifically for the trials, was disbanded, no longer tasked with the job of rooting out witchcraft in the town. The Superior Court of Judicature, which replaced it, began to require tangible evidence, and spectral evidence was no longer admissible. The trials, which had been built on a foundation of fear and superstition, crumbled under the weight of reason and logic. In the years that followed, there were public apologies from those who had been instrumental in the proceedings. Judge Samuel Sewell, one of the magistrates, stood in a Boston church, head bowed, as his apology was read out loud. He asked for forgiveness, a poignant moment of regret from a man who had once been convinced of the presence of witchcraft. Restitution was paid to the victims' families, a tacit admission of the terrible error that had been made, but the aftermath of the trials extended far beyond apologies and restitution. The town of Salem was forever marked by the events of 1692. The residents were left to grapple with the knowledge that they had allowed fear and hysteria to guide their actions, to dictate their decisions. The trials had taken a toll, not just on the 20 people who had lost their lives, but on the very soul of the town. The Salem Witch Trials left an indelible mark on American history, a chilling reminder of the destructive power of fear and hysteria. The town's name became synonymous with witch hunts, a term used to describe situations where paranoia and suspicion override logic and reason. A remorseful town was left to grapple with its dark past. Salem, a town that had once been gripped by fear, was now left to confront the ghosts of its past, forever haunted by the echoes of its own history. Behind the tale of the Salem Witch Trials lie dark truths about human nature. This grim chapter of history is not just a story of witchcraft and superstition, but a tale of fear, hysteria, and societal pressures that conspired to cast a dark shadow over the town of Salem. Fear played a pivotal role in the trials. A community, gripped by terror, was quick to point fingers, allowing suspicion and paranoia to run rampant. Yet this fear was not born in a vacuum. It was the echo of a society living on the edge, grappling with the unknown and the unfamiliar. The trials became a manifestation of these fears, a scapegoat for the anxieties of a world that was rapidly changing and hard to comprehend. The trials also reflected the society's attitudes towards women and outsiders. Women, especially those who defied the norms, were easy targets. They were labeled as witches, as society sought to control and suppress what it couldn't understand or refused to accept. Outsiders, too, bore the brunt of this suspicion. In a world that was already divided, the trials deepened the fissures, creating an us versus them narrative that left no room for reason or empathy. And then, there was the misuse of power and authority during the trials. Those in positions of influence manipulated the proceedings to serve their interests, twisting justice into a grotesque parody of itself. The trials became a tool of control, a weapon to silence dissent and maintain the status quo. The judges, the accusers, even the supposed victims, all were part of a system that was rigged to favor the powerful at the expense of the innocent. The Salem Witch Trials stand as a stark reminder of the dangers of fear and unchecked power. They remind us that in times of uncertainty and fear, we must strive to uphold the principles of justice and equality, lest we repeat the mistakes of the past. The trials echo through the centuries, a solemn warning against the darkness that can consume us when we let fear dictate our actions and allow power to go unchecked.